analyst Abe Silberstein and Middle Eastern counterterrorism expert Gadi Adelman. Good to have you both with us. Abe, let's start here with you in studio. Elections a week away. Do you see Prime Minister Netanyahu being in any position to take any kind of serious military action now?
Israel's in a very vulnerable place at the moment, and that's how Palestinian Islamic Jihad has been able to take advantage of the situation. They've been able to fire rockets at a time when, if Israel escalates, it could turn into a much bigger conflict right before an election, which could cause chaos.
So what does this violence mean for the elections? Does this benefit Gantz, who, let's keep in mind, was, of course, Chief of Staff of the Israeli Defense Forces under part of Netanyahu's tenure? He can't really come and say that he had to do something drastically different, considering he didn't when he also had an opportunity to handle Gaza.
Well, politically, he has no choice but to say that he'll respond more hawkishly and that, Netanyahu is being too weak on Hamas and Palestinian Islamic Jihad. But the truth is, yes, he would be doing much the same thing if he were in office.
From a voter's perspective, who do you think stands to benefit from this flare-up in violence now?
I'm not sure if anyone stands to benefit. This is the third election in 1 year. I think voters are very, dug into their choices, and I don't think this violence right before the vote is going to change many minds.
All right, Gadi, Naftali Bennett, the interim defense minister, is saying that there is an operation being prepared. He told i24 News earlier today that something is being prepared, but that it will come at a time of Israel's choosing. What do you think that could entail, Gadi?
Well, Bennett has been handling things, and thank God for this, because, as you know, I've stated on this show many a time that Israel just needs to stop pussyfooting around and take off the gloves. It's the only thing that Hamas and Islamic Jihad understand. Bennett is coming at this from a much different point of view, a much more hawkish point of view. They are definitely discussing, and even Netanyahu came out this afternoon and said that this next level is going to be far beyond cast-lead, pillar of defense, or protective edge, and it could become a war. But what they are going to bring, they being Israel, to Gaza will be different than anything Hamas has seen in the past. So it would not surprise me. Again, we've heard this before from Netanyahu.
Right.
And as the other guest, Abe, just stated, you do have an election coming up in a week. So these could just be words, because you have all these people living in the South that have they're beyond enough is enough already, and they want peace and quiet.
Yeah, Gadi, we've got rockets falling into schools. Those people in the South running into bomb shelters on a continuous basis. And because of that, we had Bennett saying that the Gaza situation needs to be handled once and for all. Now, Gadi, we know that the Israeli Defense Forces have the military power to completely obliterate Palestinian Islamic Jihad and Hamas. There's no question there, but it doesn't use it because the IDF does not want to cause civilian casualties. And that's why they've been, to use your term, pussyfooting. It's because they're trying to minimize civilian casualties. So how do you ever break that cycle of violence if the IDF maintains its concern there?
You're never going to break that cycle of violence if they maintain that. And this is the difference between war and diplomacy. And the diplomacy has to stop. If you turn on any other mainstream media news channel, you will not even know that Israel is under attack by 80 rockets this afternoon. 80 rockets in one day. You won't even hear about it. But as soon as Israel attacks Gaza, it's going to be on a 24/7 loop on every mainstream media outlet. This is what is happening. And Israel has got to learn that it does not matter how they go about it. The world is going to continue to condemn them, and they need to do what they need to do to survive.
Abe, do you concur that regardless, the IDF and Israel are going to receive criticism, so they may as well actually take the kind of action that may warrant some criticism, perhaps, and be more decisive and not be so concerned about civilian casualties?
Well, I'm not so sure that it would actually restore deterrence to come back very strongly right now. That might encourage Hamas and Islamic Jihad to up the stakes. And let's not forget the last couple of weeks, Israel's been negotiating with Hamas through Qatar, as Victor Lieberman said over the weekend, sending both Yossi Cohn, the Mossad director, and General Herzl Halevi of the Southern Command. They don't want an escalation, and I think they're right not to want an escalation, especially at this vulnerable time.
Well, there's also the dynamic between Hamas and Palestinian Islamic Jihad, because those two are not exactly on the same page. And do you see this as a way of Palestinian Islamic Jihad trying to flex its muscles to show Hamas that they have influence over the Gaza Strip?
Of course, yes, that's one role. And of course, they're not a party to whatever agreement Israel and Qatar has reached. But at the same time, Israel has no alternative to Hamas in Gaza. They need a stable regime in Gaza. And if you strike back too hard, Hamas can fall. And that would be a nightmare for Israel.
All right. Well, thank you for your perspective, Abe Silberstein, Gadi Adelman. Appreciate it. Now, of course, those rockets that are being funded by